So, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Tammy Davis, and today is a special day because I am extremely motivated to talk about a couple of things. It's interesting because when I pray and ask for guidance as far as what I'm here to do and say, I'm frequently presented with situations that kind of rile me up, and to the degree that I end up realizing, oh, this is really what I'm here to do and talk about. And granted, we all have our own purpose and we all have our own view of the world. I totally honor and respect that. Mine happens to be in the area of bridging the gap, if you will, and redirecting our perspective. And I don't know if that's the right thing, because I'm not trying to change anybody's perspective when it comes to their view of the world. I'm just trying to get us to consider something else. Actually reinvent our relationship. That's the way I want to say it. Reinvent our relationship to health. More specifically to what we deem illness. As I've talked about before, and I'm a big believer, and that is every problem presents an opportunity. So within every situation lies the answer. And when it comes to that particular concept, it absolutely applies to the way we look at disease, disorder, illness, poor health, however you want to label it. I was introduced to, I've introduced to a particular website today that is not unlike many other ones that are out there referring to methylation. And for that matter, even addressing very specifically health conditions as a result of methylation issues. More specifically, mental health. There was autism listed, schizophrenia, other mental health issues, as well as other health conditions. And while I realize that there are some health problems, diseases, if you will, that can end in death, like cancer, diabetes, just about anything can actually take our lives depending on how it goes. I understand that, and that would make sense that we all look at this as a problem. But the fact is I don't see it as a problem. Like I said, the answer that we seek actually lies within the problem. Therefore, that means the challenge now becomes our opportunity. And this is the reason for reinventing our relationship to health and actually recognizing poor health situations as our call to action. And, and I want to go on record as saying I talk a lot about the healing crisis, but under no circumstances do I recommend suffering. So yes, the body is going to rise up and it's going to go, hey, I'm, trying to fix myself for you, but I need your help. That would be a healing crisis. And there may be some exacerbations from time to time, but ultimately suffering is not on the table as far as I'm concerned. This is the reason why we have remedies to relieve the immediate symptoms. However, unless we are actually addressing the specific reason for being ill, you're only putting a bandage on the situation, as many of you already know. That said, back to the methylation, and methylation is a big component to this. And truth be told, no one is at fault for their illness. At the same time, you have absolute control over this. And interestingly enough, I was speaking to my oldest son a while ago when a lot of this came to mind, because he and I always get in these really, really fabulous conversations. And in the last 24 hours, like I said, I've had 3 different experiences that all pointed me into, like, this is what I want you to do. This is what the message that you're here to deliver. So a lot of what I talk about here and in my other videos and on my blog and is all actually coming into being fully published by the end of this year. That and a number of applications that can be used on your handheld devices in order to really assist you in honing in on improving your body's response to everything that you're doing. And it all comes from this perspective. I'm doing the video because everything that I'm saying right now, there's a lot to be said, and I want to make sure that I get it all out, and my fingers can't go quite that fast. As you all may already recognize, my mind races, and it's difficult enough to have my mouth keep up with it. So anyway, when I was talking with my son earlier, like I said, a lot of this came up, and methylation was a part of it, because as we frequently see, and I mean, my goodness, I saw it in one of the news reports last night. There was a highlight. We think we found the reason for autism. And, some people will go, it's in the genetics, and some people will go, there's been this big push for vaccinations, that it's the vaccines rather that are causing it. And I mean, we have all of these pointers, we have all these things that we're trying to blame, right down to poor genes. I actually had a couple weeks ago sit right in front of me and ask me if their children's problems were the result because they shouldn't have been parents, and that their genes combined really made for their children's issues. And I went, oh my goodness, no, there's no blame. There's three factors. There's three factors that lead to health problems, and that is mental and emotional and environmental. Those are the three factors. There's a lot that we don't have control over, and one of the things that I was talking with my son about was when it gets to the point where we've had an accumulative effect of a lifetime of stress, mentally and emotional stress, it is really hard to recover from that. I'm not going to disagree with that. It is very difficult to say, well, just get it together and stop overreacting. That is probably one of the worst things you can say to anybody. So like when I say you have control, pardon me, there's something on my nose. When we say we have control over this, we absolutely do. And this is actually where the oils come in. Because the oils do assist with helping to regulate. Now, I've even been asked questions like, well, how long do I need to be on the oils? Or how long do I need to use the oils? It's not like, I don't like to use the phrase be on them, because they're not prescriptions. They are options that actually help to soothe the system. But as far as being on them, you don't have to be on them. As far as how long to use them in a very mindful, specific way, well, my question to you is, how long do you want to truth be told, as long as you're on the planet. I mean, we all have options in how we want to self-medicate. Myself, I love my oils. Other than that, I'll go out, I'll garden. I love my yoga. Photography. I mean, there's all kinds of things that I like to do that will actually take me out of my head and help me dispel the whatever's going on. Some people like to drink. Some people like to use. Some people smoke. Some people shop. I mean, there's all hosts of reasons, and we sometimes, well, sadly, we refer to that as addiction, and then we start to point fingers at addiction and say that's a problem. So it becomes a massive concern. And so the truth is how long do you want to self-medicate, or what is your preference for self-medication? I'm sorry, I kind of got, I don't know what happened there. Anyway, the question is, how long do you want to self-medicate? Because we're always self-medicating. There's always this need to escape, or this desire to escape, because the pressure on us in today's world is extraordinary. So back to what I said, mental, emotional, and environmental. And we do have control over the mental and emotional to a degree, depending on how long we've been living with mental and emotional stress. The older you get, the longer you've been exposed to it. And until we can rein that in, it takes some effort. And so essentially what I do is teach, and I'm writing about, it's basically the yoga of healing. It's a combination of effort and ease. You want to apply effort, but you want for it to be easy. If there's an extraordinary amount of discomfort and dissatisfaction with what's going on in your healing process, you're under stress and you're not really helping matters. You're doing the best that you can with what you've been given, but it's actually interfering with what you're up to. Some conditions that we've labeled diseases or disorders, I completely disagree with. They've become disorders, such as schizophrenia and autism, and I don't know how many people I'm going to upset with this particular thought process. But the fact is I don't see these as disorders in the sense that they need to be medicated and that they need to be handled. And I think I've talked about this before in previous videos. They don't need handlers per se. The thing is that, and I just recently wrote something about this, that is our early onset illness is, when are we going to say, draw the line and go, no. I mean, schizophrenia used to be something that was kind of addressed and identified in late teens, early 20s, was when that's typically the diagnosis age range. Obviously, older people can be diagnosed with it as well. Now we're seeing children much younger being diagnosed with schizophrenia that or autism. So these particular diagnoses are on the rise. And many people will go, well, hey, they have these odd behaviors, they hear things, I'm very well aware of all the symptoms. Please know that I don't speak out of turn. I've been educated in the area of psychology, mental health, and have worked very directly with these particular health issues. The challenge becomes the way we view them. And I, again, recognize the positive symptoms, even the negative symptoms of them. At the same time, I feel like, and somebody could say, well, our children are being born with these. How could they possibly have mental and emotional factors that are tied into the onset? They don't necessarily have the mental and emotional. Well, to a degree, they don't. We've already been able to demonstrate that in utero, we are exposed to the mental and emotional stressors. And this is not to point fingers at the mother and or the father, because the dynamics within the relationship and other people affect the mother, and that affects the DNA. Just know that, like I said, all of this information is going to be coming out in a book, and I'm happy to work with you one-on-one and to be able to do this. Now, keep in mind, my perspective is very different from everybody else's. It's a perspective of positivity in the sense that this is a good thing and we follow the lead. When it comes to the DNA is designed to fluctuate, folks. It's designed to fluctuate. It's extraordinary what our DNA and our epigenome is capable of. And so that said, you might go, well, why are these disorders are a problem? They're not coming into they're not coming in under normal circumstances. And I challenge everyone to wonder, what really is normal? Because if we're designed to adapt to our environment, then these are adaptations. And instead of pointing fingers at the individuals with the diagnoses as that they're the problem, excuse me again, it's time to start looking at what actually might be triggering the problem, as opposed to pointing to the fingers and looking at these children and going, you have problems. Because then as you look at them, and my son actually works in a treatment facility in Austin where they work a lot with autism and other mental health issues. I've worked in those as well. And when we start looking at this and we start seeing that how troubled these children are, in fact, he actually just had his nose broken about 2 months ago by a 9-year-old with autism. So this isn't because the little boy is so disordered. It's because of where he came into the world, and it was emotionally traumatic. And once he was given the diagnosis, this is where the things become problems, because our reactions to this. I mean, just imagine if someone was telling you that there was something wrong with you, or acting around you like there was something wrong with you. These things are very troublesome, and these will, even though it's not intentional, even though the intention actually is to be helpful, the worry and concern that we project onto others actually triggers an emotional reaction in those that we're trying to assist. Therefore, how do I want to say, creating even more of an issue. I feel like I'm repeating words, so if I am, please forgive me. And so that's how I see it. It's an adaptation. So the brain adapts, or our genetics adapt in such a way that alters the way the brain functions. Now we see these particular symptoms, and then but I think it's our challenge to not look at that as something is wrong. We need to look at that and go, there's over 70 million people on the planet with this particular diagnosis. Maybe we should take into consideration what the heck is going on out here. Yeah, you want to point to vaccines. You can point to vaccines. That's only one thing. It may not be a vaccine. It may be something else. It's a culmination of everything. Same thing goes for schizophrenia. The same thing goes for any of the more degenerative diseases that we're experiencing. But the fact is that we have to start looking at it as a symptom of something that could benefit from us out here, as opposed to singling out the individual or singling out the disease and going, okay, this is a problem, and then becoming more worried and concerned with how things are progressing. Because keep in mind, there's plenty of stories of people who overcome illness. And yes, they'll talk about being very positive and being very hopeful and being optimistic. And this isn't to say that they don't have their challenges and they don't have their faith in one thing or another. It's also, you have the capability to alter the way your epigenome reacts to everything, because our genetics respond to both environmental and the neurochemistry. And again, I'm a big advocate, as you know, for the oils, because the oils actually help to mediate that arena until the neurochemistry can be regulated. The same thing can be said for addiction. So I've talked about autism, I've talked about schizophrenia. I mean, I could sit here and go on and on and on. Addiction is the same thing. It's all in how we are responding to our world. And as I mentioned, the DNA is designed. We are wired for adaptation. It is designed to fluctuate based on what we're being exposed to. And as we know, our world could stand some improvement, but the fact is it's not going to improve overnight. You have to start with where you are. And I think the first place to start is to stop targeting these things and making them bad, and understanding that they are actually a sign, if you will, of where we need to redirect our perspective. That's how I see that. I mean, just like I had in the last 24 hours, I asked for something. I had 3 different circumstances that all pointed me back to, you need to get this information out there. And that's just because this is what I feel compelled to do. I keep stopping myself. I'm not gonna lie to you. I keep finding excuses as to why I shouldn't be the one, why I don't have time, all of those. And so I keep finding the motivation. So I sit down every day and I do a little bit and I do a little bit. And so it's coming together. So that's much I can say. It's coming together. But when you start to doubt and start to wonder, that's where you start to trip over your own self. So anyway, as I said, this information will be released later this year through publication as well as mobile applications. In the meantime, I'm willing to work with people, happy to and open to working with folks who are interested in completely revamping and reinventing the way they're viewing a particular health situation. What that means is you have to be willing to give up everything else that you've been told and you've heard. This isn't to say that anybody else's is wrong, but if it's not working for you, then you have to be willing to put that down and try something else. I see so many people all the time. I have one person in mind, and this has nothing to do with health. It has everything to do with, and it has a financial health actually, and is reluctant to commit to any one particular thing. He sees what is good for him. He has a sense of where he wants to go, but he's so afraid to choose and commit that he's kind of dabbling, and so therefore he gets kind of like, he's sending mixed messages. And so he's getting a lot of mixed information, and he's not seeing anything come together completely because he's uncertain. He's not clear within himself. His intention is, he's not clear with his intention and his desire. I'll say it that way. He's not expanding beyond the financial component, is how I want to say it. And the same thing can be said for our health. If we're not really clear about what it is we want and what does good health really mean for us, what does it mean when you actually feel good? That's one question I want to ask. And, truthfully, you can't tell, it's hard to ask a child this question, what do you want if you just felt good? But the truth is they probably even felt good. They're not aware that their behavior is different until we start pointing it out. That is a fact. And yes, I understand. And here's the thing with, I want to say this. So I just want to be responsible and say, I understand how difficult it is, number one, to actually rethink positively. And I think I mentioned this earlier, but I just want to reiterate it. It is difficult to think positively when we've had years of practice of being stressed and reacting a certain way. It takes some time to redirect that muscle. And so, number one, patience and compassion and kindness for ourselves goes a long way. The inclusion of essential oils, and again, I know some people, are concerned about, are these really effective? And here's the thing, I will tell you this much, less is more. And what I mean by that is less is more effective. The more you use, you actually shut the body down. We know this. Alcohol, on that matter, is a very good example. Here, when you drink alcohol, it puts you to sleep because it's activating a particular GABA receptor. It actually helps to calm you down and helps you to sleep. But then all of a sudden, depending on how much you drink, you're back up again. This is the reason why when somebody passes out, they wake up later in the night. Because what happens is those GABA receptors stop working. They shut themselves down because they're getting too much information. So this is what happens, and I'm actually writing a blog post after I get off of this, finishing it up, on why less is more. Because if we don't start to mediate what we're doing with the system, which includes thinking and oils, you're shutting your body down. You're actually redirecting your epigenome. You are actually redirecting your genetics to protect you, even though you don't realize it. And then you might say, well, I don't feel protected. But the fact is that it can only do what it knows. It only can do what it knows to do, okay? But it needs our assistant, nature, helping nature. We are nature. There is, we are, this is our body. It's not disposable. It's only disposable when we leave it. So, we take care of our animals and our cars much better than we're doing with our own body. So, using less keeps the body at status quo. It actually helps to mediate the stress response. If you use too much, when it comes to essential oils, you start to shut it down. And you have to gauge it with your body. I can make recommendations till the cows come home, but you have to just check your body. And the thing is that if you apply it, it becomes metabolized through the system. If you inhale it, it's not as strong. It is effective, but it's not as, I want to say, intoxicating. So oils, absolutely, in the meantime, and they help in all manner of healthcare. It doesn't make any difference what illness you're dealing with. I particularly find them very helpful with mental health. depression, anxiety, as I talked about, schizophrenia, autism. But the fact is that we all have to be on board. And I'm not saying that I'm not unwilling. I want to also say this. When I say that you have to be willing to drop everything else you've heard, I'm talking about the basic generalized information. I'm not talking about medical information, because there's information out there that your medical practitioners have that is crucial to your well-being. The challenge becomes working together. And this is what I like about what I do is a lot of health professionals don't agree that essential oils, if you will, are helpful. Some of them will say they are. Some of them basically got nah. And for that reason, I've had several people now I've actually had to take off of the oils while they were using some particular medications, because the doctors aren't aware of the constituents within the oils and how they potentially might interact. So this is an important piece. This is something that I actually add to when I work with you. So this isn't to say that you don't work with the doctor if you're working with me. I'm happy to work with people who are working with a doctor. In fact, I applaud it, because I believe that incorporating my perspective into the conventional model actually adds an extraordinary value to and potential for recovery. So this includes addiction and other degenerative diseases. Now, when it comes, and even schizophrenia, that's a challenge for a lot of people, because there's a lot of medications involved. And so, when there's a doctor involved, I'm always willing to speak with the doctor. Chances are the doctor doesn't want to talk with me, and that's perfectly okay. I'm well versed enough to be able to understand what the medications are doing, and even look at lab reports to understand what might not be working well together. In the case of autism, I've done the same thing. Autism, although, like I said, if we catch it early enough, it's not about eliminating the symptoms as much as it is about helping them feel comfortable in their body. Because let's be honest, the older they get, the more looks they get, the more people start to point fingers because something's different and they don't understand what's different. And then that, of course, like I said, is going to cause emotional and mental stress in people. So it's not about looking at autism as a problem so much as it is as helping that individual be comfortable in their skin so that the rest of the world doesn't harm them. And it's not even an intentional thing. Until we can generate a worldwide acceptance of what is and start looking at things in a more positive manner and stop isolating people as weird and difficult and every other name that's ever been called to those, especially living with mental health concerns, the better off we'll be. But in the meantime, I'd like to see helping that individual be comfortable in their system. And like I said, I'm happy to work with people on a one-on-one basis. And it's just that keeping in mind that what I encourage is listening to the body. I don't have a particular protocol that I adhere to as if there's a one-size-fits-all. That's a conventional model. And the challenge, I shouldn't say it's a challenge. The sad thing about it is a lot of our alternative practices fall within that conventional model. It's not about looking at the problem. It's about seeing a concern and allowing that concern to lead the way to recovery and healing. And that said, the only thing that does heal the body is the body itself. I recognize energy. I know there's a lot of energy work out there, and that makes a big difference. There's a lot of alternative practitioners that do work with the energy fields and assist us at that level in helping to soothe. And I can't say enough about that because I feel like that really benefits people as well. So it's not just like the oils are the only answer. Please understand that. I just love them because, well, truthfully, I don't have access to a lot of energy work. I have, I've got my little garden critters, I have my plants, and I have my oils. But I do appreciate deeply energy work. I've had really great energy work. So incorporating that into your healing regime is encouraged. I do suggest that. And the inclusion, like I said, of specific essential oils to kind of help you get through as well is very highly recommended. And like I said, as far as nutritional recommendations go, that would be very specific to your system. And the one thing I will tell you here is that if you can eat something and feel good, then eat it. I don't agree with the limiting diets. I don't agree with, go low histamine, go low oxalate, go low carb. I don't agree with that. There's certain foods that if your body wants it, your body wants it because your body's yours. It's, I can appreciate the way these programs were developed because, they come from somebody else's viewpoint. But that said, that's a viewpoint, and you can take it and incorporate it and work within it in a way that serves your system. That's the reason why I say I don't agree with them as that this is the fix for everyone. And I don't necessarily think that that's how they're coming out, but I think that's how we're taking it. And, let's look at it this way. Antibiotics, antidepressants, blood pressure medication, anxiolytics, the anti-anxiety medications. You've got an assortment, folks, of medications. Why? Because they don't know which chemical is actually leading to the depression or the anxiety or the blood pressure issues. They don't know specifically which chemical is the culprit, and they're attempting to control that, understandably so. But you have a buffet of medication, and you pick and choose which one actually works with your system. The same thing can be said for your diet. You pick and choose what works for your system. You don't go, okay, this is what they're telling me to do. This is what I have to do across the board. No. If you start to feel like you're not getting results, or you don't like the results you're getting, rather, then start to tweak it. It's your system, and that's what I'm about. I am about empowering you to work with your system. And I'm really excited about the launch of this material later this year. And so I, forgive the shameless plug. I don't have any links. I'm not doing any pre-sales as of yet. It's still in the works for all of it, but I'm really excited about it. It is regarding basically everything that I just talked about here, but it breaks it down, and it normalizes it, and it gives you guidance on how to actually work with your system and work with your practitioners. This is the reason why I have the program called Breaking the Cycle of Disease Management. It gives you an insight into really what's going on and how you might be able to better affect your wellness. But the only thing at this point I want to leave you with is let's reconsider disease and disorders and illnesses. Let's see them as signs of opportunity. And I understand how challenging they get. Trust me, I've been there myself physically. I think I've talked about it in other videos, and I'll say it again here. I've had my fair share of addiction issues, which included eating disorders and substances. So I'm very well aware of how difficult it is to see it as something positive. But through it all, through my own healing and recovery, I've been able to identify my patterns as an individual throughout my life, ever since I was a child. I can see how I was from the time I came into this world. There, the stories of who I was and how I was when I first got here. It sheds light, and knowing my mother, how the pregnancy went with me, sheds light on why I had the life, I had the path that I did. And even then, it's like I said, the last 24 hours really presented some emotional upheaval for me. And at the same time, when I look back throughout my life, everything brought me to this point to be able to share a different way of not only looking at a health problem, but working with that and using that problem as our opportunity to overcome and actually feel better. Now, is this a 100% fix? No, like I said, you choose how you want to self-medicate. As long as you live on the planet, you're going to have to be working with your system, because your system is going to be consistently adapting. That's what you're wired for. That's what we're all wired for. That's what nature is wired for. So as long as you're here, you're going to want to work with your system. So getting the tools in your hand and being able to offset symptoms and potentially prevent long-term health issues and living a quality life towards the end of your life, that's really the goal. And teaching our children how to be able to do that. And not, I'm thinking about these people who are being born with health problems. Who needs to be living with arthritis and, rheumatoid arthritis from a very early age, and autism? All of that leads to other issues, and schizophrenia. All of these are leading to more severe health problems in the future. So why don't we start now and teaching them? By teaching ourselves, by helping ourselves, we can actually model something new for them. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Like I said, I'm always happy to work with you one-on-one to be able to guide you through this process and really encourage you to find a relationship with your system that actually helps move it forward and gives you a more promising, healthier future. In the meantime, like I said, I've got the program Breaking the Cycle of Disease Management, and the books are coming out, or I should say it's primarily a book with mobile applications coming out this fall. So thank you so much for watching. I look forward to hearing from you. Until later, have a great day. Bye.